Ancient technologies. So another book I'm working on, Ancient Technologies, Tempo Computers. So it's just they. So basically, computers in ancient times, right? They did it. Ancient humans understood the flow of like electricity and whatnot, right? Which they got the idea from the flow of water. So they mastered the art of water flow, right? Flowing water. That's why you have stuff like in ancient Rome and stuff like that, aqueducts and hydraulic systems, as they tend to call them. So they tend to call them hydraulic systems, which it's very similar to a logic system, right? A computer logic system, right? Logic circuit. You know, a flow of electrons one way versus the direction of the other, and you have valves, right? Things that open and close to let the water go one way and then stop going the other way. Basically, like a dam. A dam is like a giant resistor, right? And understanding how stone is really good resistor, really good resisting material because inherently it acts like a resistor. Interesting enough, when you know what a resistor is, what it's made of. Mostly it's made of like ceramic and sometimes some crystals, like quartz crystal, for example. And it can resist the flow of electricity. Granite, for example, has a lot of quartz in it. So if you try to have electricity flow through it, it's going to resist it. But also, if you have electricity flow through it, you're going to cause it to vibrate because quartz crystal has a habit of doing that. When electric current flows through it, it vibrates. And that's why we use it for radios, because the vibration is very helpful, especially when you're trying to turn electrical signals or electrical pulses into a sound. That you want to convert the electrical pulses into a vibration. A vibration, you know, especially when you're vibrating something like air molecules. Vibrating air molecules is sound. So when you understand all these things, then you look at ancient structures, you start noticing that, like, oh, okay, that's why they're using quartz, granite here, and using limestone there, and this, that, and third. And then the reason why these things are shaped in the way it is, and that's why I wish I had images right now to show you. You'll see it in the near future. Images from temples of places that were built, stone temples, right, from top view, right, from air view, and they look like computer circuits. Now, it's not that the ancient humans learned about our technology or anything like that. It's not like they got the ideas from us. It's vice versa. And I remember pointing this out to somebody mentioning the fact that, like, yes, modern computer circuit boards and stuff like that is inspired by ancient structures, like how the ancient structures are laid out. If you look at ancient structures, you would, from top view, you would notice it looks like a circuit board. You can be like, oh, that's a coincidence, but in our universe, it's untrue. There's no real such thing as a coincidence, right? Because people like to think that the coincidence means it's like something's accidental. It just so happens. It could, it just so happens. Like, it's not deliberate or anything. It's like, no, everything in the universe is deliberate. If it can happen, it will happen, right? So, if it can be discovered about electrons, right, and electricity, and you can use the electricity to power, metal, to charge metal and have the metals be magnetic, and then they, basically make electromagnets, and then they repel. You noticing that those details will allow you to figure out how to create an electric motor. And then what happens once we have an electric motor? We're gonna put electric motors on everything, right? And that's where you get stuff like electric cars, right? Drills, uh, helicopters, and the list goes on, right? Anything that you want to spin, an electric, lathe or whatever, right? Whenever you need spinning, that's what the electric motor would come in, right? That's what we do in modern day times. So ancient humans would have done the same thing, and they did. Not that they would have, they did. They did stuff, but they did stuff slightly different. Instead of going the extreme route like we do, which is incorporate electricity with metal, they incorporate electricity with stone, which is why it's important to pay attention to what is left over, what's available. Now they use metal, don't get me wrong, they use metal, just they use less metal and use more stone. That's the difference. We in modern day times use more metal than stone. Plot twist, right? To prove a point, your smartphone has more metal in it than it does rock, basically, right? Or stone, which comes from the quartz crystal, the silicone, PCP board, and all that stuff. It's like, because copper is metal, right? Gold is metal, right? Zinc is metal. Iron and whatever other metals, steel, especially if you have a stainless steel phone case, right? And the list goes on. And then the resistors, like I said, will have ceramic in it. That's essentially stone. And there could be a little bit of clay in there. There could be some quartz, obviously, among many other types of mineral or rock, whatever you want to call it, that gets combined and used to create your smartphone. So we just lean more heavy towards metal than towards rock, right? But ancient humans understood the whole rock and metal interactions and took advantage of it. So that's why it's like when I look at a lot of this ancient stuff, it is definitely technology, and incredible technology. That considering the fact that it's like, wait, they figured that stuff out way before we did, right? Before our time. And it's like, wait, they had technology and they used it for stuff. It's like more, which is what intrigues me, right? It's why I'm interested and why I'm even writing books to show this stuff all together, all the information, right? Everything that's in my head, all the knowledge that I'm gaining, right? I'm learning a lot from the ancient past, especially about technology, because they figured shit out before we did. And definitely we have lost a lot of knowledge, which I'm doing my best to regain as much of it as possible and make it applicable, right? Make it available so that y'all can use the information, knowledge, and be able to create things using the knowledge of the ancient past. They had communication devices. That I know is a fact. They had ways to speak and talk to each other. That's why they use certain terms like Stargate and whatnot, because it's a form of communication that was inspired by them staring at the sky. So they figured out a way to create a network of communications around the world. So I'll get more into that later on, but right now I just wanted to point out that yes, I'm working on a book. This is the cover for it. It's a cute little cover. It's going to, obviously, I would like to ideally showcase, because there's a thing called, I forget what it's called, but there's a thing, I posted a video about it, where it's basically analog computing. A lot of the computers of the ancient past was not all electric powered. I just point out that some was because, the temple structure, since it has tall pillars or tall parts of the structure, there'll be times where it get hit by lightning, and that's where it'll get its electric power from. Then it'll store it like batteries, right? Capacitors. Oh, speaking of capacitors, remember motherboards have capacitors. But anyway, back to what I was saying. electricity would come in, right, from lightning or from the ether or whatever. That a lot of these structures function slightly different, but the whole idea is to try to gather electrons from the sky. Lightning comes from electrons in the sky, and then store it, and then use it and have it flow through the stone, right? Stone, certain types of stone resist more than others, and just like resistors in a computer board, will create the function. So if you have a structure that has the ability to resist some forms of electricity and then not resist that much, there's a reason for it. So it's like when you understand how a phone or like a computer board works, motherboard, right? And then you look at these stone structures and then think, okay, gets hit by lightning. Then what happens? You will start seeing a pattern. You start seeing like, wait, the flow of electricity through it's going to do stuff. Something I noticed is there's these steel clamps or metal clamps, or they call them stone clamps, and I was like, typically it's implied that a lot of it is iron clamps. And I was like, iron, it's decent, for electric current and flow. It's like, but zinc and even silver, gold, iron. I meant to say copper will be better metals for electric flow, right? Electric transmission. And then I saw some people post on Twitter about the clamps and different types of clamps, and they showed the analysis that most of these clamps are silver, zinc, copper, iron, gold sometimes. So it's like, oh wait, they use these different metals that we use for our electrons. Electronics. So we use these metals for electronics. Ancient humans use these for their stone structures, specifically connect a whole bunch of blocks, and a lot of those blocks tend to either be granite or some other type of similar type of stone. And it's like, I'm looking at it, I'm like, I know what a motherboard looks like. I know how a resistor looks like. And I'm like, these are resistors. These are ancient stone resistors. Like the odds of the coincidence, as they say, right? The coincidence of these stones having these little metal clamps in a sequence at that, in our order. Where it's like, if lightnings hit this, or some electrical flow, some electrons flow through the stone, it will obviously go through the metal faster, but then it'll slow down because of the rock, right? The stone, then it'll speed up again, right? Or whatever is left over that hasn't been resisted will flow through the metal, and it'll just keep that process going. So the more stone you have, while the electricity is trying to flow from metal to metal, right? It will reduce in electron flow because of the resistance. So it'll be a lot less electricity flowing through it. So let's say you take 10,000 volts, right, which comes from a lightning. If I'm right, it's 10,000 volts. So taking 10,000 volts and converting it down to, like, let's say 100 volts through stone, right, using stone as resistors to reduce the 10,000 volts of electricity down to 100 volts, right? You can use that 100 volts to power stuff, or even drop it down to 10 volts. You can power stuff with a 10-volt battery, so to speak, right, with 10 volts. So then you have to think, like, okay, what is it they're powering with this? So of course I get into more detail of that stuff later on. Just want to point out this, like, the basics is, like, a lot of these ancient structures not only resemble like motherboard circuitry, electronic circuits they actually do function as electronic circuits. And what I'm trying to say is that some people in the past, smart people, figured that out. Figured out that ancient humans had this technology, this computer-based technology, right? This concept, and then they made it into our they made it into computers and stuff like that we have now. Like somebody figured it out. The past figured that out. So the past figured out how to make computers, basically, right? And then modern day humans figured out that they did that and then used it to create computers. I wouldn't be surprised that IBM, specifically IBM, the IBM company, that's what it came from originally. They figured this out, and they modeled their motherboards in the shape, the form, the layout of a lot of these temples, a lot of these ancient structures. As well as they got some knowledge and information. They got a lot of the analysis and stuff. So what I'm going to put out, the information that's going to be in this book, is going to more likely be a lot of the same stuff that they figured out. And what I'm saying is that they figured out what the ancient humans figured out, and then they used it, and then we're trying to act like we're the ones who figured out, oh, look at us, modern humans, we're so smart, we came up with the concept of a motherboard and computers, when in reality, no. We got the ideas from the past. We got the ideas from ancient humans. Ancient humans figured it out. Then we found out that they figured it out, and then now we're using the technology. But instead of giving ancient humans the credit for it, IBM is going to take credit for it. That's what I'm trying to say, right? As an example. So you can put that under the conspiracy category, right? Conspiracy theory. But just wanted to point that out. The fact that I noticed that, that situation. Guess what? When I saw some stuff, some top view stuff, and somebody mentioned like, damn, ain't this interesting? How a city looks like a motherboard, and it's like, yes, it does. Ironically, it does. Ironically, I meant to say coincidental, but ironically, coincidental. It's a coincidence that our cities are laid out like motherboards, right? Yeah, what's the odds of that? Right? Because you think, what came first? The cities or the motherboard? Now with this whole temple concept, it's like, it was the cities, so to speak. It was temples and stuff like that. It was ancient structures laid out in such a way that modern humans saw it once we had airplanes and stuff, and it's like, all right, we're gonna make our technology, which is our motherboards, we're going to design it and lay it out just like these temples. That's why if you take these temple layouts and put it on a PC board, which is something I plan to do in the near future, I love the idea of like, oh man, it'd be cool to take one of these ancient temples from India, for example, that they have a lot of them, and actually go to a website called PCBboard.com or something like that, and they, you send them blueprints and stuff like that of how you want the PC board, basically, custom make motherboards, and I can make these motherboards based off of these ancient temples and stuff, and see what it does, see how they work. Most of it, I'm not the only one who's looking into this. There's some other people, and some people mentioned that a lot of these structures are designed to be like oscillating, so they'll create sound, basically. So it's a circuit board to make sound. So it'll make certain types of frequencies and stuff. So they're sound generating circuitry is what I'm trying to get at. So it's like, oh, cool. Do want to see what these ancient structures sound like, right? When we put electricity flow through it and see what sounds do they make. Which would be cool, because then it's like, oh, now we know we have some ancient sounds, right? We have sounds of the ancient times. because we know what our music sounds like and the kind of what's the sound of the modern world. But it'd be interesting to hear the sounds of the past, right? I've talked long enough.